Hi guys, welcome back here to Otter's RC Garage. Today I got two RCs to show you. These two RCs we got for Christmas this year. The one is a Jeep, the other one is a deadbolt. You might be able to see it sitting off here. Today I wanted to show you guys these crawlers and show you the differences between the two. This here is the deadbolt. It's an SCX24. These are micro crawlers. They are a 1/24 scale. My son, he picked out, well, sort of picked out, he got it for Christmas, it was still a surprise, but he had been saying he wanted this red deadbolt. So we got the deadbolt for him, and he is loving it. Now the deadbolt is more of a dedicated crawler. It's got the extra clearance on the tires, make sure you don't rub anything, and as you can see, the body itself is actually narrower. You can see the tires off to the side of it. Overall, great car, great little crawler. Has been doing him great. He does want to change up and get the actual functioning light bar up top here. I got something ordered that I think is going to work, but we will see. This is mine. This is a Jeep. It is a four-door Jeep. Typical what you expect a Jeep to look like and be. So one of the first modifications I did do, because I knew that we were going to be using these everywhere and I want to try and keep mine as scale looking as possible compared to my son, who he wants his deadbolt to be able to crawl about any and everything. I don't know if we're going to go into some ridiculous, flex going on, but we're sort of leaving this up to, it's going to be his choice for his truck, and I'm doing my way. I want to keep mine a little bit more realistic. So one of the first things I did, actually, if you look in here, is I put these little fender flares and fender liners in. So these are 3D printed. I got them fairly cheap off, I believe those I got off Amazon. And they bolted in. They came with their own bolts that were a little bit longer. That way it'd make up the difference. 6 spots on both sides they bolt in, and they just fill in that wheel well area and add a little bit of black in there and help shadow it. It makes it look a lot more cleaner and a little bit more real scale like. Deadbolt and this Jeep, they come with what are these? Nitto. Almost said Falcon. These are Nitto Trail Grappler tires. They do have the same tread as what a real life Nitto tire would have. What's one of the cool things about these little scale crawlers is you can get fairly real life replicas. They have some Goodyear Wranglers you can get. They have some Milestar Patagonias. That's actually what I got on order for this one, which I'll go into later. But there's a bunch of different tire options, and every single tire can get better or worse grip. It depends on what you're using it for. Obviously, some mudslingers are going to be better in mud than they are going to be on the rocks, whereas like Patagonias, they're really good on the rocks and really grippy, but they tend to, I guess, slide a little bit more once they actually get packed full of mud. These tires are absolutely, I'm not going to say horrible. I mean, they do the job, they're round, but as soon as they get wet or any sort of mud in them, you're basically just sliding tires and you got to use your wheel speed. I'm going to move on here and I'm going to show you a couple different differences between the Jeep and the deadbolt, because they are, even though they're both SCX24s, there is differences to them. So one of the first things that I would like to show you guys that is different about these, I'm going to hold them up here. If you look where my finger is here and where my finger is here, the deadbolt actually, which is this one here on the left, the deadbolt actually has shorter links up front and longer links in the rear. The Jeep is, it still has shorter links in the front than what it has on the rear, but they are a little bit longer on the front than what the deadbolts are, and shorter than what the deadbolts are on the rear. So what that essentially does is that ends up pushing a lot of the center of gravity on the deadbolt farther forward. So when you're going up a hill, it helps keep the front end down. Now that's one thing that this Jeep sort of needs some work with. A lot of the weight, especially with the battery, seems to be a little bit more farther back. For both of these, they make high clearance links. Now the little bit of rock crawling that me and him have been doing, almost every single time that we get high centered on something, it's sitting on those links. The name of the game when it comes to these crawlers is where your center of gravity is at. You want to make sure it is low and for the most part a little bit forward of center. You don't want it dead center. A little bit forward of center helps keep the nose down so you don't end up tumbling over backwards when you're trying to crawl. I start going up hills that he can make it up, but as soon as I start going up, I just roll right backwards and tumble on down. As you can tell, we have gone out and ran these a few times. I got the Jeep pretty dirty. I don't know how well the dirt's going to necessarily show up. It looks pretty nice and clean actually in the camera. But some of the other differences, besides just those links and the Jeep being a little bit on the downside of where the center of gravity should be at, the other difference is the electronics. These are the two controllers. As you can see, they are a little bit, they look quite a bit different. And that's because they are. This is the first generation electronics. This is actually in the deadbolt. So this is what my son got. I got the second generation of electronics, and so far from what I can find, the Jeeps are the only ones that got a second generation of electronics. So I did get a V2 Jeep, which, give or take, some people like it, some people don't like it. I do like the V2. The biggest thing that I like about the V2 is, if you can see on the front there, now I got lights, now I got blinking lights, now I got lights again, and I can turn them off. Easily done on the channel 3 switch. Now, after pulling that one out and using it, this too has a channel 3 switch. Now it's tucked up underneath the cover instead of on the handle like that V2 one is, but it doesn't control the lights. I don't know, there's going through the owner's manual and everything, the deadbolt just has its lights on all the time in the bumper there, no matter what. If that's something that's big for you, I'm sure you can get the V2 electronics and just throw those in and you can have your light control. They do make aftermarket lighting control modules so that you can, turn them on and off with the channel 3, and you could just plug into the channel 3 on the receiver for the factory receiver. I do like the V2 better. Beyond just the switch, I actually like the crawling better. You can see this is a stock electronics, and you can just barely get that thing creeping. Now that is excellent for doing any sort of crawling. With the deadbolts controller, it's a lot harder to feather that trigger finger. I seem to be a lot more able with my Jeep to do some of the more technical stuff than he is. I've seen quite a few people on YouTube and on other channels that have just completely ditched the stock electronics and gone with whole new ones. The main reason being is, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but you just start pulling the trigger, there's a high-pitched whine. Now personally, it doesn't bother me. I really don't care. But there's a lot of people that whine really bothers them, so they'll upgrade the ESC. Well, with these stock SCX24s, their ESC is also the receiver. Once you change to a new ESC, you obviously need to get a new receiver, possibly. A few little differences there. Another tip, and this is beginner to beginner, I'm not an expert with these little things. You might want to, especially I found from doing my reading, it's more with these Jeeps as well, but the right rear spring goes weak. And I've heard a couple people where it's not the right rear and it's actually the left front, but for mine it is the left or the right rear that's gone weak. Now the reason for that is because packaging. They have them mounted up at an angle on their side, and they have this little foam block that everybody says is the culprit that causes it, but it loads the suspension, so it either loads that left front down or that right rear down. So one or the other goes down, and then you're stuffed in the box for a couple months, a year possibly. There's a lot of things to explore with these. I hope to make a video here soon of us actually crawling. Unfortunately, snow fell outside. We did have a couple courses actually set up out front, and it was cold. I didn't feel like grabbing the camera. I knew I'd just be sitting there shivering and shaking the whole time trying to get a video of these guys crawling over things. So here soon we are going to be making a course, a dedicated course for these 124th crawlers out back. Like a rock garden area that's already got filled with rocks and everything. We got some bigger rocks I used to have in my fish tanks. They're, you know, good, a little bit smaller than a basketball. And we're gonna set those up, like I said, make a dedicated course that we can just continually keep on building upon and making the course itself better, but also more challenging. My ultimate goal with these crawlers is something for me and my son to do together. We're both going to be, like I said, customizing these and trying to make these go over this course and make it a little more challenging every single time, just to bring a little bit of friendly competition and sort of bring father and son together. Alright guys, so this is going to wrap up this episode of Otter's RC Garage. Make sure you guys like, make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and leave some comments. Let me know what you guys think. I only got one video that really has a lot of comments, and I'd like to see more. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.